Welcome back. The Colorado Department of Transportation is looking at changing the way we fund our highways in Colorado. Right now, we pay about 22 cents in state tax on every gallon of gas we buy, but CDOT is considering a plan where instead of that tax, you would pay just over a penny for every mile you drive. Well, here to discuss this with us is Shailen Bhatt, CDOT's executive director. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
First and foremost, how bad is the situation right now in terms of our roads and the funding issues?
Yeah, so we have a $9 billion a year shortfall, a $9 billion shortfall over the next 10 years for important projects. We are 32nd in the country in terms of pavement condition. We're 18th in terms of bridge condition. But most important, I think most of your viewers have probably sat in congestion on I-70, I-25. We have an interstate system that was designed in the 50s, built in the 60s for a population of Colorado that was going to be in the 1980s of 3 million. We're at 5.8 million people today. We're going to 8 million people in the next 20 years. So we have a significant funding shortfall and a lot of great projects that we could build, but for a lack of funding.
So that growth that you're talking about and expecting so many more people to move to Colorado, that's part of the impetus of this new plan, correct?
Well, I want to differentiate between the clear funding shortfall that we have and the really the data that we're looking for from this pilot. So if you think about it, if we take a gas tax and then charge about the same for a road usage charge, that's not going to solve our funding problem. The reason we're looking at a road usage charge is because the gas tax, my car in my first car in 1990 was a Jeep Wrangler. It got about 8 miles to the gallon. My car today gets about 40. Right. There are cars out there that use no gas. And so 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the gas tax will not be a reliable source of funding. So Colorado and a bunch of other states and the federal government is looking at, okay, what is the model 10 or 15 years from now? So that's why we're doing a 100 vehicle voluntary pilot program to start collecting data around what this could look like.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that fewer people are driving these days, right? I mean, a lot of people are just foregoing having a car.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are fewer people driving. Unfortunately, in Colorado, that is being overwhelmed by just the sheer number of people that are moving here. And so there's a lot. And I think we often talk about passenger vehicle, but the 6 million people that are in Colorado know the 8 million that will be here in 20 years, they need to buy groceries, they need to buy goods, and the vast majority of those goods are shipped into Colorado. So again, that's another driver of vehicle miles traveled.
Okay, so let's talk about this pilot program measuring how much drivers would pay if they were taxed at 1.2 cents a mile instead of 22 cents per gallon. Now, our own Marshall Zellinger, he's one of the pilot drivers. He says based on his mileage, that would work out to paying about 35 cents more per tank of gas. So is that, well, I guess the question is that going to make a dent in your budget?
It will not. So if you think about that, if you fill up 2 or 3 times a month, and it costs you 35 cents more, that's about $1 more a month. And that's not going to solve our funding problem. And again, I want to separate the issue of, in order to solve our funding problem, you know, the governor and the legislature and a bunch of us need to come together to say, what is the revenue that we're going to increase in order to do this? This is all about saying that 10 or 15 years from now, our current method of funding highways is not going to work. So we've asked 100 drivers, myself included, Marshall included, and some skeptics around this to say, okay, give us some data, let's go test this for a few months and see how it works, what doesn't work, and then we'll come back and we're going to refine this over the next several years.
So what are the chances of something happening with the state legislature this year? This is a struggle every year.
Yes, there are pessimists out there who would say that there's just a lot of political posturing and people are more concerned about who becomes governor in 2018, and that's what it's all about. I'm actually an optimist. I believe people when they say that they and their constituents think that transportation is the #1 priority issue. The governor has been out there talking about this, and there's so much ground available for a bipartisan compromise that gets everybody what they need, and most importantly, get CDOT the funding so we can go out and widen I-25, between here and the Springs, deal with Monument Hill. We can widen I-25 going north, up towards Fort Collins. We can build a peak period shoulder lane going west out of Denver to match the one that we have coming into Denver, which has solved our traffic problems. There are literally projects and important things that we can do across the state, and I'm hopeful that we can come together.
And I know people don't like taxes, but why not raise the gas tax? It hasn't been since the early 90s. I mean, is that something that is feasible?
Yeah, so raising the gas tax was raised in 1991, both at the state and the federal level here in Colorado. A dollar from 1991 is worth 40 cents today. And if you think about it, there are a number of our neighboring states that have raised the gas tax, because this often gets painted to me as a Republican or Democrat issue. Utah has raised their gas tax twice and passed a 1 cent statewide sales tax in the last 10 years. Nebraska, Idaho, Wyoming, Iowa, these are ruby red states that are passing a gas tax because for them it's a conservative principle.
Well, we all drive.
Well, they all drive, and they're
Yeah.
not going to turn over their roads to their kids in worse condition than they got them.
So what's next? With 30 seconds left, what's next?
What's next is the legislature comes back into session. The governor's out there talking about a plan, whether it's hospital provider fee. Let's find some common ground. We're going to work with people across the state. We're going to go out and listen to people, and we're going to come together and hopefully get a plan. And then we got to go to the voters of Colorado, and hopefully we get a referred measure that lets us do that.
Because you're right, we love driving in traffic.
Yes.
Love seeing construction out there. Shailen, Bhatt, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Be right back.